with that, let me proceed to our next slide, because that's, obviously there are different ways to phrase it, but the Oxford Learner's Dictionary Online defines a debate as, quote, a formal discussion of an issue at a public meeting or in a parliament. It is a structured argument, right? And every single answer that you guys have given so far is basically correct, is fundamentally correct. You are offering opposing viewpoints on really any topic where two or more people can have a reasonable disagreement, right? So what do I mean by a reasonable disagreement, right? Well, does anyone have any ideas about what reasonable means in this context? What does it mean to disagree with someone? We all know what it means to disagree with someone, right? Être en désaccord avec quelqu'un. What does it mean to disagree reasonably? Please, thank you, join us, sir.
Just like don't attack the person, like don't like attack them personally.
Right?
Just keep it pure on the subject.
That's a very, very important point. You're attacking each other's ideas. You're attacking each other's claims. You're attacking each other's arguments. You're not attacking each other. And that's why in a debate, although it is, and there'll be more on this later, it's what you call an adversarial exercise. In other words, there are adversaries. It's a competition. That's just a fancy, nerdy way of saying it. It's a competition. You have two teams, like in any sport, and you're trying to win. You're trying to beat the other team. And so the other team, they are your opponents. They are your rivals. But they are not your enemies. There's a difference between a rival and an enemy, or an opponent and an enemy. An enemy is someone you wish ill, personally, directly. But an opponent or a rival is someone you want to defeat in some kind of competitive endeavor where only one can win, but you don't necessarily have anything against your opponent on a personal level, right? You have to make sure that when you are pointing out the flaws in your opponent's point of view, that you're not just doing it based on emotion, that you're not just saying it arbitrarily. In other words, you're not saying, well, I'm right and you're wrong. Why? Just cause. No, that happens all the time. Grown adults, people twice your age, 3 times your age. I see it all the time. People feel like they're opinionated, they're outspoken, they feel like everyone should agree with them or shut up. And they feel like no one should ever challenge them to back up what they're saying. If you can get good at debate, you learn how not to make that mistake. Basically, each argument is, how do I actually put this? Each argument is basically a reason. Think of it that way. That's the best way to think of it. An argument, an individual specific argument, is a reason why your position, your opinion is correct. Or if it's a counter argument, you're responding to an argument that your opponent has already made, and you're giving a reason why that argument is incorrect. But ultimately, that's what an argument, an individual argument, comes down to. It's a reason. So in other words, you will formulate your opinions based on facts and logic, as you see on the screen. And each individual argument is a reason why your position is correct, based on facts and logic, a combination of facts and logic. And each individual argument should include facts and logic. The thing about debate is it forces you to look at what merit there might be on the other side of the issue. Because most issues are not so black and white that there's one side that has nothing of value to say. Even if they're mostly wrong, they may be right about something here or there, right? First thing you do, you want to make constructive arguments. A constructive argument is an affirmative reason or a positive reason why your side is correct. Again, in each debate, you'll want to come up with at least 2 or 3 of these. The second thing you need to do is refute or rebut your opponent's arguments, right? This is where you play offense, like in a sport. It's not enough in a debate just for both teams or both sides just to give lots of positive reasons why their side is correct. Because then the judges, if it's a competitive debate, or even the audience, if it's an informal one, aren't sure which side to choose over the other. They have heard a lot of good reasons to agree with both sides, and they don't know which side is better than the other. You need a clash. Clash is a necessary ingredient in any debate. That's what it's all about. The third thing is also part of the clash. This is where you play defense, reconstructing your own cases, your own side's arguments. That's where you play defense. You defend your own team. Because the other team, if they know what they're doing, they have an idea what they're doing, They are going to be trying to rebut your arguments as well, the same way you're trying to refute theirs. So, here is a topic I wanted you guys to tackle, and I think it's something that you could probably relate to. I know it's something I had strong feelings about when I was in high school. There is a topic, here's a resolution. Be it resolved that school uniforms should be mandatory for all high school students. Yes?
For the fact that I know for sure, in Jamaica, all elementary schools and high schools have a uniform, and it's an easy way to identify who goes to what school. Right? So it gives us a sense of identity for each school, right? So that's a positive.
Okay, personally, I think we shouldn't have uniforms because people that are in usually wear at school or get judged because they
Remember to try to think, anticipate what kind of counter arguments you're going to hear from the other team in response to each argument you come up with. That's how it works, right?
But if so, we're saying prevent bullying, then we can also consider that it comes to a cost. If students are now buying, more fancy clothes so that they don't get bullied.
So I'm going to start, let's say, 3 minutes for each team to speak. Let's hear just a free-flowing discussion from the affirmative team. What are your reasons? What reasons did you guys come up with?
Sure. Okay. So, hi everyone. We came up with like the 4 primary reasons as to why we believe schools should mandate uniforms. So we have a safety aspect, an equality aspect. It promotes more discipline in students, and also it has a time management aspect as well. So I'm gonna open the panel to my fellow.
Okay, I'd like to say something. So the time management is probably the easiest one to go over. We found that students having uniforms actually decreases the thought process of having to choose what to wear every day, which can be a time-consuming part of your day. So I think that's just the shortest and most simple answer we have out of our 4 pillars.
The equality one, as in like it's so like how do I explain this? Everyone's the same. Like there's no difference between like people that have more money, like better clothes, and people that have lower income and less better clothes.
The discipline aspect would be like it prepares you for the future, like following rules, and you're like already prepared
To work.
Yeah, to work and everything.
Yeah.
Nice, very nice. So, there's about a minute left for your team. Have you guys, don't blurt anything out though, have you guys thought about possible rebuttals to those arguments that the other team could make?
Yes.
Okay,
Sure.
don't say them, keep them in mind. Because now we're gonna hear from the other team, right? And they are gonna share their constructive arguments, and they're also gonna maybe respond to some of what they've just heard from you guys. And some of what they say in response to your arguments might be stuff you've already seen coming from a mile away, and it might not. It might catch you completely off guard. You gotta be able to deal with all of it, right? So, let me just reset my timer, and now it is the negative team's turn to share your constructive arguments.
So we're disagreeing with the topic. We are using arguments that are defending that that we don't need uniforms in schools. Our arguments that we used was freedom of expression, the cost of things, comfort, size, and yeah, that's like the main things that we talked about.
So one of the big issues in the world is inflation, that could be a reason why uniforms shouldn't be mandatory, because a lot of people can't afford.
Nice. Any others?
Also, we think that uniform shouldn't be mandatory because of the size. I speak from experience. I went to a new school and they didn't have my size. They didn't have me or my brother's size. So we couldn't go to school for like weeks because they didn't have our size, and we couldn't wear anything because it was mandatory. So, and also comfort. Sometimes the uniforms is not really of our style, and sometimes the fabric made with it is not really comfortable. So we don't really feel good wearing it, and sometimes it itches our skin. It just doesn't feel right.
And it could also take away from your studies. Like if you're just thinking about how uncomfortable your uniform is the whole day, how much you don't want to be in this uniform.
Yeah. Like
you
some
can
people,
you cannot be concentrating
Yeah.
on your work that you're doing at school rather than being in your own clothes, being comfortable in your own skin.
also have sensory issues, and they have issues with certain types of fabrics that like really cause problems for them, so they can't wear that uniform.
So is that all of the constructive arguments you guys came up with, or do you have more?
There is freedom of expression. Like some people express how, like they express themselves through their clothes. They like a certain type of style, that and if they can't like wear that all the time, it feels like, you know, like how they feel is like kind of being diminished, kind of, and how who they are is kind of being pushed down inside themselves.
Now, this is another important aspect of the strategy that comes into debate, right? What you want to do is lead with your strongest arguments, and especially the arguments that a lot of people are going to be expecting to hear. One of the main arguments in this, because I've heard people debate this issue before, Lord knows, one of the main arguments you'll usually hear on the negative side against school uniforms is the self-expression argument. But while you guys were bringing up your constructive arguments, it was only towards the end of that session, that 3-minute session you guys had, that I started to hear about the self-expression. That's the kind of argument you want to bring up earlier. Partly because just logically it makes a lot of sense, but also because it does tend to strike a chord with people. It's not that emotion, you don't want there to be any emotion in a debate, because at the end of the day, we're human beings and emotion is going to influence us to some extent. You just don't want the emotion to come at the expense of logic, right? But if you can find a way where you're making logical sense and then emotion is still playing a role and helps you get through to people with your point more effectively, so much the better. That's one of the advantages of that argument, right? What you want to do is make that argument first. That should be your first argument right out of the gate, you see? Now, very quickly, Caroline, Tesfa, Thierry, Auntie Gemma, what did you guys think about the kinds of arguments and the kinds of argumentation and performance that you heard from the students today? If you want to say which team you thought won or lost, that's up to you. No pressure.
I think they both won, because I was really, really impressed with what they had to say, with what everybody, the rebuttal and everything. Some of the things I never thought about, because I always wanted my son to go to a school where there was uniform for some of the things that they said. That you don't have to think about it, everybody dresses the same, everybody looks the same. But then when I heard what they had to say about the self-expression and stuff like that, I never thought about that. Mm-hmm. I just know I wanted my son to go to a school that was wearing a uniform, so I wouldn't have to buy the Jordan running shoes and all that good stuff.
I agree with Gemma. I don't think we're saying who won or who lost here. I think we all won from sitting here and listening to you, for sure. But I really liked the way that this team wanted to ground their argument in something that was research focused or focused on an element of social life. Like you said, I have autistic friends, right? There's research that supports what you're saying, right? That people with autism who have sensory issues don't really, they have issues with tags and clothing and all of that. I really like that. And Promessa's telling us something about inflation, which is a big deal and something that's very current in social life, right? You're hearing about that everywhere. And so I really like that you tried to ground your debate, even though it was impromptu. You're like, let me find something kind of grounded that we could probably find in the scholarship if we look. Yeah, so that was really excellent.
I agree with you. Mm-hmm. I cannot say that each team who won, but I find that you guys were very firm and very persistent in what you wanted to say. Your demeanor was very strong, and I really liked about that. Really like that about you, and I like also what you said about the quality of your arguments. Yeah. So tout le monde a gagné.
Oui.
Thierry also wants to add something.
Okay, first I want to say to you that was amazing the way you explained things, the way you did it. That's part, like, I've always wanted. I've never participated in debate, but my whole life I debate with people because I have very strong opinions, and I'm a very, very critical thinker. I always put everything I think back into questions, and I question myself and I research and I try to find these facts for my arguments. I never thought about it in a structured way the way you presented it, but it sort of cleared it out in my head about how I do things in life. And I want to say I don't believe that we all win in life. It's not true. I'm a businessman. We win and we lose. I personally think that they won, but I'll tell you why. They were very strong, and I agree with what the ladies said in the back. But the burden was on your side, and unfortunately, they were able to respond to your rebuttals. So that's the reason why I would give it to them by default, because they didn't have the burden to tell you guys that your side had the truth. You had to carry the weight to say, I'm showing you that you guys are completely wrong, but I find that wasn't there. Okay, so with great thing to remember is that confidence, when you sell yourself, whether you're going to be in business or you're going to go into an interview, confidence means 60% of the battle, right? Coming in there, knowing that you believe in yourself, that's 60% of the battle won. And doing the proper research that she brought up before you go into these face-to-face is super important. So yeah, congrats to everyone.